Hello, and it's almost afternoon now. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. So now to something entirely different. Some of you may have seen Dan Doctorow's presentation yesterday. Who's seen Dan's presentation yesterday? Wonderful. So at least a handful of you. This is one of the most exciting projects in Europe, I think. I mean, we Germans are known for our precision and reliability, but apparently we can't build airports. So our new airport in Berlin was dramatically delayed by 8 years to be precise, but this October, finally, we will open it. Why am I mentioning it? Because my team is responsible for the current airport that will close down then. And what we are going to do with the airport, with the then former airport, is what I'm going to talk about now. We had 3 big airports in Berlin. We closed down Tempelhof in 2008, and we will close down Tegel in October this year. And it's pretty big. It's 5 square kilometers of precious land in the city of Berlin, right in the center. It's about 5% of the size of Paris, or 9% of Manhattan, 10% of Tel Aviv, just for comparison. And the city decided to dedicate this whole area to future technologies. The location is pretty amazing. It takes about 10 minutes to City West, 15 minutes to Angie, our chancellor and the seat of the German government, of the most important industrial nation of Europe. And it's surrounded by the traditional industrial manufacturing. All the BMW motorbikes that you know worldwide are produced there. Siemens has their largest production facilities in the area. Now, Berlin has completely transformed itself over the last 20 years or so, or 30 years, I should say. The first period of transformation was after the World War, because it got completely destroyed. And then in '89 we had unification, '90, and since then we had to combine 2 completely separate cities. At the same time, we lost about 2/3 of our industrial capacity. What we did is we invested heavily in education. So Berlin has now become the science capital of Europe. It's very cosmopolitan. We have more than 200 nations in the city. It's probably the largest English-speaking city outside of the UK. I mean, the UK is not part of Europe anymore, unfortunately, or at least not the European nation, which is a shame. I mean, I spent 7 years in London. I did my PhD there. I love, never mind, different discourse. So at the same time, it's become the startup capital of Europe, and we have close cooperations all over the world, and in particular with Tel Aviv. So we built the START Alliance. It's a startup exchange program between the cities. So why am I mentioning this? Because it's all about innovation and the brain pool that we have. And that's a similarity between Berlin and Tel Aviv. So we have a mutual mindset. And apart from that, I still envy you for this, the city that never sleeps, or 24. It's just beautiful, because the same is true for Berlin. The challenges ahead are dramatic. And if we have so many mayors here at the Muni World, and when 2 mayors come together, wherever they are, all over the world at these conferences, after a few minutes they talk about the same stuff. It's about affordable living, it's about traffic that gets worse. The reason is very simple. Cities are growing everywhere. More than half of the global population is already living in cities, and it's really speeding up. 75% of all resources are consumed in cities, but, and that's the good part, 80% of wealth is created in cities, and that's where we tap into. So we decided, or we looked at what are the challenges of the 21st century, and amongst those, urbanization is the most pressing, I would say. So our project focuses on mobility in particular, on future energy, on recycling technologies, on material research, because a lot of innovation is coming from new materials and batteries and membranes for water purification, etc. And of course the IT layer. We combined that all together at this place and call it the Urban Tech Republic. Urban Tech because it's about city technologies, urban technologies, and the Republic because it's about people. And technology should serve people and not the other way around. There are so many engineers around that are developing solutions for problems that don't exist, and I'm a bit fed up with that. So we turned the whole planning paradigm around. Why is it so interesting? Because these 6 fields I just mentioned are responsible for about 6,000 billion in global market volume by 25. And we want to have a stake of that, of course. That's the whole idea. One thing we learned is whenever you create a new research and innovation industrial area like that, what you need is the combination of science, industry, research. You need a university in the center. That's of paramount importance, and that's exactly what we've done. We've decided to take a university core, several research institutions in the very center of our project. We've already included about 140 different innovation elements in our planning. But all of that, all of a sudden stands in front of a completely new paradigm. And that's something I wanted to share with you. So if we talk about city planning, and that's kind of the topic of today, then we should always keep in mind that city planning, or that cities are the spatial manifestation of societal values. And these values change over time, of course. And it goes back to the 16th century with Utopia, to Mazda City and similar projects, very visionary. And you can already see that there's kind of an amplitude in there, because the 50s and 60s in particular were about building the automotive city. We built cities for cars. And now we are so busy fixing it all over the world. This is an example from South Korea, Seoul. You can walk by the river. In Madrid, they basically built a new park, and sort of the whole motorway sort of went underground. You are all familiar with what happened in New York with the Broadway, where they did away with the cars. The High Line is a fantastic example of an infrastructure reused, repurposed in a beautiful way. In Paris, there's a lot of activity. So it's basically a grassroots movement. And the common theme, or the Bosco Verticale in Milan, the common theme really is it's about the reconciliation of city and nature. So we bring nature back into cities. And that has a lot of implications. And this background that has changed dramatically, particularly last year, 19 was certainly the year of the global climate crisis, when it became so evident that we can't ignore it any longer. We had the Fridays for Future movement coming up, and even the EU announced the new Green Deal. And that has, that's a multi-billion challenge. The idea to become climate neutral by 2050 for the European Union will trigger massive investments, and that's what we need. I already said, sort of cities are the cause, but they are also the solution for the problems we have. Dan mentioned his president yesterday, and I think we share our view on him, but it's about cities and the mayors of these cities, in these cities. And fortunately, 438 mayors in the US decided to stick to the Paris climate deal, although President Trump canceled it. And that's a fantastic sign. New York decided to become climate neutral by 2050. Oslo will make the complete public transport system carbon neutral by 28. Copenhagen aims to become climate neutral by 25. Extremely ambitious. They are probably the most ambitious globally. Absolutely amazing. Paris will cut 50% of public parking by 24 and make it 100% bike friendly. So within the next 4 years, every road in Paris will have bike lanes. That's dramatic. So it's all against cars and in favor of humans, of pedestrians, of cycling. And that's an enormous change. And of course, Berlin also decided to become climate neutral by 2050. And that means cutting 85% of our carbon emissions. And that's a huge task. So we had to rethink everything, basically. The way we plan, the way we sort of deal with electricity, with mobility. And we even looked at sort of printing cities. Why not? I mean, this was 2014 in China, a YouTube video that I discovered June of 14. And when you look at that, they printed, ugly as night, you don't want to live in those houses, but they printed 12 of them within 24 hours. It was an experiment, basically. And just 6 months later, it already looked like that. And then in 15, it looked like a villa. In 16, sort of the first commercial building was printed. In 17, Apis Corp came along, and they developed this robot that you can apply on the building site, that's printing around. This is a little video. This is yet another, in 18, they used foam. I think it's not entirely environmentally friendly, but it's an interesting concept. At least it's insulated thermally. Not terribly sustainable though. But we are going into biodegradable printing now. 19, we had a whole village printed. So there's a lot of innovation going on there. But now it's going even further. We are going into mass timber. So we are seeing beautiful wood constructions coming up. This is one in Harbor City in Hamburg, designed by a friend of ours, Jan Störmer. So the whole idea of working with wood again, so rediscovering wood is fantastic because you can, of course, capture so much and bind, long-term bind carbon. And we aim, we are going to build 6,000 residential units in our projects from mass timber, from wood. And we want to cut carbon emissions by 80%. And if we are smart, and that's something we are working on, we haven't solved it yet, but we are working on it, we want to cut production costs by 25% roughly. And because we have lost the ability to do it, we decided to look back, how was it done in the past? And they used the Dombauhütte in Cologne, for instance. That's where all the experts came together and where the prefabrication took place, and that's something we're going to do as well. So that's the residential district. We'll use a lot of wood, we include nature, and we give back the public space to the people, basically. We are great at creating habitats for, I don't know, gorillas and rare species, but not for us as humans. And that's so important to look at friendly, human-friendly environments. So we have begun to Swamp City, no, it's a sponge city concept, Schwammstadt, sponge city. We keep all the rainwater that falls in the city. We don't flood it away with retention and evaporation system. We use buildings as material banks, so it's a whole cradle-to-cradle philosophy coming in. We use underground infrastructures that you don't have to dig up roads anymore. We have a new energy concept that's distributing energy between those who have excess energy and those who need the energy. It's basically a thermal system where you can also include renewables very easily. We designed our own lampposts. We did a biodiversity study about animal-aided design. And it doesn't cost much. It's more about the planning part. You have to think stuff through before you do the planning. And there's another paradigm shift, and that's the future is electric. It sounds so simple, but if electricity is renewable, then it's no longer evil. Then you can drive around, you can produce, you can cool and heat buildings without a poor conscience. So let's electrify everything, basically. This is a beautiful chart from Germany. The red dots are wind energy, yellow dots are coming up. End of 2005, we had about 200,000 installations of renewable energy. End of 2012, we had 1.3 million. Then we had 2.5 million. Now we are over 3 million installations of renewable energy plants in Germany. Production costs are on par with coal plants, but so much cheaper if you look at the total cost. For coal, you have an extra of 21 cents per kilowatt hour in environmental costs, and not so for wind energy, of course. And from November 18 to November 19, we were at 46.8% renewable energy in Germany, day, night, winter, summer. It's absolutely amazing. It's a revolution going on. At the same time, storage costs are plummeting, not only for batteries, but for other storage systems as well, and you need many of those to manage the energy transitions. We've decided to make our residential district completely car-free. No cars inside. We park them away, and by the mid-20s, every car will have a battery. So we use the cars and integrate them into our energy system. So they become the storage for the district energy that we produce. The mobility hubs will guarantee that you will always get from A to B. You will always have some mode of transport. Of course, autonomous driving is coming anyway, and what that means for cities remains to be seen. But there's a warning. You see, I like technology, but technology is not a cure-all. This is the traffic control center in Rio de Janeiro, a beautiful IBM concept from sort of the noughties, 2008, 9, they built it. In Beijing, it looks very much the same. But if you look at the traffic in both cities or in Tel Aviv, it's basically like that. So it doesn't really help. And the trouble is cars. Whether they are electric cars or autonomous cars or Ubers or Lyft, they are still cars and they clog up roads. So that's not the solution. And there's this beautiful picture where you see 74 people sitting in a bus, how much space it takes, then compared with bikes and then compared with cars. And you see cars are just the worst solution that's possible. So biking is part of the solution, must be part of the solution. In Copenhagen, people bike about 1.2 million kilometers every day. It's absolutely incredible. Berlin is catching up. In Amsterdam, they ran out of bike parking spaces. So even that needs proper planning. And that's exactly what we've been doing. So we have 6-meter wide bike lanes in our project, the whole biking infrastructure everywhere throughout the project. And we received awards and planning certificates, although we haven't built anything yet. So that's basically our project in a nutshell. I give you a 90-second promotional video, and then I'm happy to take a few questions.
How will the people of tomorrow live? In the next 4 decades, we will create more urban space than we have in the last 4 millennia. We should build smart cities. Cities in which every rooftop absorbs the power of the sun, wind, or rain. Perhaps someday, all aeroplanes will be fueled with sunlight instead of kerosene. Maybe streets will even store braking power. And when do you think we'll start teleporting? We'll make steel as light as plastic, and plastic as sturdy as steel. We'll turn our plastic back into oil. How will we do this? By starting today. Berlin TXL. Think city, think future. From Tegel Airport, urban technologies take off. At Berlin TXL, ideas take flight. And from here, products find their way to markets. Startups meet academic research and industrial enterprises. Students meet engineers. New concepts meet years of experience. A tight network of universities, entrepreneurs, industry leaders and institutions. A learning structure, a system that reinforces itself. Here, the answers to tomorrow's challenges are developed today. Become part of the new Berlin. Let's work on the smart cities of tomorrow together. At Berlin TXL, the Urban Tech Republic.
Thank you. So we covered about 100 slides in 18 minutes. We have 2 minutes left. Any questions? All happy? Ah, yes, please.
It sounds amazing, and it's really beautiful for open spaces that we have. But what about all the cities that are already built?
So the question was, this is a wonderful greenfield approach, but how about brownfield? A lot of that you can apply in existing cities as well, like in Barcelona where they are building the super blocks. They basically reorganize the traffic. In Paris, they are refitting all the roads to make it more bike-friendly, to install more solar and green in cities makes a lot of sense. The most effective thing about heat islands in cities are trees. It's so simple. So plant more trees. It's the most. There are so many studies out now. They have an amazing effect. So most of the stuff is really simple. The most difficult part is to crack the property sector, because a lot of what we see going on in cities is speculation, is property speculation, and we have to redefine the value chain in property, and that's a pretty tough one, but we are working on it. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm curious about you mentioned returning to wood buildings, and as you just talked about planting more trees reduces carbon, and if the effort is to reduce CO2 emissions overall, but we're reducing trees to build wood buildings, how does this play out? And also for fire safety hazards as well.
Yes. if we talk about wood, it's not the wood that we used to take, so one tree, one beam, basically. It's mass timber, and mass timber is you take wood and ply it together so that you get the structural integrity, and the fire protection is amazing. So it's even more resistant than steel or even concrete structures. I've seen rescue stairs made from wood certified by the fire brigade. So that's really not an issue anymore. But to the other part of your question, okay, in Tel Aviv you don't have big forests. In Germany we are a little happier, a little luckier in that respect. But sort of we grow more trees than we consume, and most of the consumption of trees currently goes into burning them in pellets and for energy purposes. That's such a waste. And that's what we want to try to change, basically. Yes?
I was wondering, what's your cybersecurity strategy for Pixel? Like, are you thinking about like hackers and all this, especially as we're urban security conference?
Cybersecurity is a big issue, particularly when you dive into these conventional smart city concepts where you have more and more urban data. And that's something where we decided we as a city don't have the capabilities, so that's why we have signed cooperation agreements with the city of Tel Aviv, of the Innovation Agency in Moscow and New York University to work on these issues together, because we've got to do something about it. And also we need to, as cities, we need to regain our data sovereignty. Currently, we all have stripped ourselves naked, you know, with that stuff, and that's got to change. Yes?
I wanted to ask about the two-wheels critical transport, which is above the Lime and Bird level, but below the car level. What is your vision about it?
You mind, like the boring company from Elon Musk, sort of the tunnels? Or what?
I'm talking about the two-wheel scooters, which are
Okay.
more than for the 10 to 15 kilometer distance, which practically is not even mentioned in any of these discussions.
That's true. The jury is still out. I love them. I use them a lot, even though I broke my ankle last year with it, so I had a little accident with them. But I see not one mode of transport, but multiple modes of transport, and that's a valuable addition, really. Sort of as many alternatives as possible, and then you've got a nice concept. Yes, I think, okay, we are 2 minutes over schedule now. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.